This journalist
Dr.
is gone.
Cindy Prinz is an epidemiologist at the University
Did his car blow up?
Well, he'll have a sex scandal next week. Just so you know, just getting out ahead of this. This reporter here, he probably harassed women that he doesn't even know. I'm just going to put it out there now.
We better call. We better call and find out where this guy lives.
That's right.
Because I will pay for his defense.
Just let him know. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Financial Guys podcast. I'm Glenn Wiggle here with Mike Lomas, and of course we are the Financial Guys here with you now live each and every Tuesday morning, which is kind of cool. So hopefully you're tuning in live. If you're catching this on replay, we appreciate you watching, whether it be on YouTube or if you're listening on iTunes or one of the podcast platforms, Spotify. We stream on them all, so I don't know where you're listening, but we appreciate you being here. So we got a lot to talk about today. We are going to talk a little bit of craziness, economics, and finance today. We don't normally do that on the podcast or the radio show for that matter. Typically we're talking a lot of politics, and we'll talk some politics today too, but some of the inflation numbers and economic data coming out, I'll start with this, I guess. They just basically lowered all of the GDP forecasts for the third quarter, fourth quarter, next year. All of a sudden, we're going to have this. Now, on the one hand, they're lowering GDP forecasts. On the other hand, the talking points from the liar Jen Psaki and I like the choo-choo trains, what's his name?
We're buying too much.
But yes, it was such a robust recovery.
The
economy is doing so great.
So well.
That this is why we have inflation. It's just simple.
It's the only reason.
As she would say, I love her hand gestures. This is why we have inflation. There's no reason why. This is normal in a recovery that we're having. So is it a robust recovery causing inflation, or are we downgrading economic expectations? Because those two don't go together.
And, of course, the dirtbag mainstream media, they're like, well, we're shocked that the GDP numbers aren't going to come in like we thought. But, they'll just disregard it. Now we have a coin shortage, by the way. We have a coin shortage. I mean, what the heck else could they screw up in this economy? And, by the way, what did he have? Like supposedly the most record amount of votes ever, like 80 million plus people vote. And now his approval rating's at 39% 10 months later.
Right.
I bet. I bet. The supply chain is exploding. Exploding. And I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons, the scarcity of more regulations, right? Yeah. More taxes coming down the pipeline, right? So, okay, let me see here. We need more businesses to make chips here. We need more businesses to produce goods here. Let's see. Why don't we see if we can persuade them by higher taxes and more regulation?
That'll
Let's
work.
See if we could do that.
That'll work for sure. Because nothing incentivizes people like taking more of their hard-earned money, right?
If this isn't exploding, I don't know what is. I mean, there's any mental midget that says this is really great planning here. This is good. 10 months into it, I'm really happy with what I see here.
Wouldn't you be scraping off the Biden, Biden bumper sticker at this point? Like, wouldn't you be taking down that yard sign and kind of hiding your head like, oh, look, I get if you hated Trump. I understand that. If you hated Trump because you hated mean tweets and you didn't like the braggadocious part of his personality, which is the typical part of the personality of a guy like his caliber. If you didn't like that, I get it. But for God's sakes, you elected a dementia. Well, not really. I mean, some of you did. Some of you voted for him. I don't know.
There's a big chunk. Look at. If they cheated with what, 5 or 8 million votes, something like that.
Easy.
There's a whole laundry list of mental midgets out there that lined up to vote for this guy.
No doubt.
And no matter what happens, right? Hey, by the way, now the word is that we're going to have a shortage for the holiday season.
Yes,
so
of course.
Your kids aren't going to have toys. Does that remind you of something? Because to me, I remember seeing pictures of Venezuela and warning people 2 or 3 years ago that this is what happens when you vote in left-wing liberal extremists.
Right.
And so don't tell me, well, it's totally different. No, it's not. No, it's not. Donald Trump would have lowered regulations. He would have continued to lower taxes. He wouldn't have even needed to do that. He already did that with corporate taxes. He would have said, look, what do we do to start making chips here?
Right.
What do we do to start to open these ports? And just like when
sexual
predator Andrew Cuomo said, there's no way you can get a boat over here in 3 weeks.
Exactly.
It was there in 2 days.
Right.
No big deal. That's what happens when you have good, strong leadership.
Yep.
There's some of the greatest people, smartest people in the world right here.
Yep.
We can unload chips. 59 million people on permanent welfare. That's one of the biggest problems.
It's just a can-do attitude, right? It's an attitude, a Trump attitude of we can make this happen, and the Democrat attitude, that's never going to happen. You can't do this. You can't. Here's the thing. Yeah. Trump lowered regulations for Operation Warp Speed to allow these vaccine manufacturers to skip some of the trials and hurdles, hence the experimental vaccine, but it got a vaccine out there, right? Lowered regulation. Now, Biden administration can't figure this out, right? The old Biden administration, first of all, Pete Buttigieg, he's been on paternity leave for 2 months. Nobody knew. Right. Nobody knew. Right. That's the funniest part. I didn't know he was on paternity leave until like a week ago.
Well, you have to get some investigative reporting there.
At least even with Bush, right? Even as a political, person that Bush was, Bush as well as Trump put people in the cabinet positions that actually knew what they knew what they were doing, right? He took a guy from Goldman Sachs and made him Treasury Secretary, right? So you take people from the private sector and you have them to serve. I remember Trump, and Bush, took CEOs of corporations and high level executives and people who knew things like, the transportation industry, supply chains, right? You took Pete Buttigieg, who was a small town mayor in Indiana, who couldn't couldn't run for governor because he's not popular at all, and you put him in the position basically to satisfy your rainbow quota. That's what you did, right?
That's exactly right.
And he left for 2 months for paternity leave, and nobody even knew he was gone. Right?
Could you imagine being in that position, and taking 2 months off?
Right.
I couldn't imagine.
How about just checking in? How about just checking in? Like, hey, looks like there's a supply. Listen, honey, I got to get back to work for a day. Looks like there's some issues at the ports. I might want to address. But here's the thing: stay on vacation, Pete. Go ahead, because you're freaking useless, man. You don't know jack nothing about supply chains, transportation. If Trump was in there, or you were in there, Mike, or I were in there, anybody with a brain in their head that knows how to operate business, we'd figure it out. First of all, lower the regulations. Even if you do it temporarily, lower the regulations to allow the backlog to be fulfilled, right? Get the backlog first. Address that first. Allow truckers to go out. It might be a little bit risky. I get it. Allow truckers to go to 12 hours per day instead of 10 hours per day. Allow them. Give them a tax bonus right now. Incentivize them, right? How about a tax holiday? How about this? How about a 3-month tax holiday for truckers? You move these goods, no taxes for you for that period of time that you move them, right? I can think of all kinds of things you could do.
How about reducing the cost of fuel? That would be a big one.
Right.
God forbid they actually do that, right? How about talk about increasing the supply of fuel? How about, to your point, if you don't want to increase the supply of fuel, how about we get rid of some of the federal taxes on fuel? Because they are absolutely out of control. What is it, like 25 cents for a thing of fuel? I got my dog eating a pen here. I'm just going to grab it quick.
So you do that. So Pete Buttigieg gets on. I don't have the interview handy, but he gets on. I don't know whatever station it was, right? But he's talking about, and you can hear this, the ignorance in their voice. It's amazing, right? So Pete Buttigieg is on some major station, Mike, and he's like, well, we've got to have short-term solutions and long-term solutions to this problem. We're going to put more money. This is why the infrastructure bill is so important, because we're going to have to address this not only for the current crisis, but for crises in the future. And just like, who wrote this for you, Pete? I mean, seriously? Total poppycock, right? This is garbage. It's all talk, right? Yeah. Oh, we're going to have long-term, short-term. I'm giving you short-term solutions. Give them a tax holiday.
Prices.
Give them a tax holiday. You're talking about some long-term solutions and short-term solutions. You could waive the gas prices for truckers right now. You could waive some of the taxes for truckers, right? That's a short-term solution. You could do more drilling and increase the supply to lower costs. That's a long-term solution, right?
Here's the long and short-term solution.
Morons.
How can we give people extended unemployment benefits? Because obviously they're hurting.
Right.
There's no way they could go get a job, right? Let's extend the unemployment benefits and the welfare benefits so these people can go and continue to sit at home. Meanwhile, you've got good leadership like DeSantis that's just saying, hey, you know what? We'll unload the boats here. All joking aside, more and more of that unloading is going to happen in the state of Florida. Watch and see. Many of these boats are going to say, you know what? It's worth it for me. Instead of New York, I'm going to go now to Florida. Instead of California, I'm going to figure out a way to slowly migrate my goods over that way, and everything will be distributed out of Florida.
Yeah.
And Florida will be running the whole country at some point.
The tough part is that you got to get through the Panama Canal. That's the only way to get through, and so you got a bottleneck there of potential shifts because
here's what'll happen
from China, right?
Watch watch the cost of goods. I'll be able to buy a cup of coffee in the state of Florida for $1, and by the time it gets unloaded on a boat and shipped all the way to California, it'll be $4.
Right.
And they still won't figure it out.
Right, but I'm not talking about the coffee and stuff coming from like South America. I'm talking about like the microwave coming from China, right? So
right.
But likely, just so you know, folks, just to prepare you out there, the days of the $15 microwave and $50 flat screen TV, those are gone. Those are gone.
No.
So maybe, a long time ago, early in the spring, when inflation all of a sudden took off, right? Inflation just shot like a cannon out of a rocket as soon as Biden did things like, kill the pipeline and so on. So all of a sudden you got prices going, and the fuel prices affect everything, right? Because you got to move goods, and that affects everything. So
huge.
Fuel prices go skyrocketing, right? The rest of the economy goes skyrocketing. We dropped trillions of dollars in 2020 in people's laps. Didn't require them to go to work. They spent that money, but didn't make the goods. This is a huge problem, right? They're still sitting home not making the goods, right? Back in March, we said this, you and I, on this podcast, on our radio show that we do for 20-some-odd years every Saturday from 1 to 3. This is not going to be as transient as people think. Right away they came out, this is only short term. This is transient. This will go back to normal. What did we say back then, Mike? It's only going to go back to normal if you take away the government support system of unemployment. And unemployment is running now through September. People are just now finally coming off of unemployment, and yet they're still not getting jobs, right?
Well,
that's interesting.
Many of them have been used to making $400 or $500 a week. We're then making $900 a week and bank some of that money as well, right?
Yeah.
And they've got there's a huge black market out there. It's amazing how much of a black market there is of people that literally don't pay anything in taxes. Many of them are liberals who are complaining that folks like you and I, who actually do our returns legitimately, aren't paying enough. It's disgusting.
Like Joe Biden, right? He's out there lecturing everybody. They're going to pay their fair share. You didn't pay your fair share. You owe $500,000 to the IRS. Is he going to pay that?
Al Sharpton?
Has that been cleared up yet?
How about Al Sharpton there? He owed what, like $4 to $6 million, something like that, somewhere in there.
He's got millions. They don't pay taxes. No consequences for these folks. They don't pay. If you and I didn't pay tax, we'd be in jail. Right? They'd be putting liens on our houses. They'd be garnishing our wages. They'd be threatening jail time. They'd be giving us hundreds of thousands of dollars of penalties. Al Sharpton, he will never pay that tax. Al Sharpton will take that $4 million he owes to the IRS to the grave. They will never put a lien on his house. They will never restrict his travel. They will never take him to court. They will never touch him. Because he's a protected. You talk about, white privilege. It's all about Democrat privilege, man. I'll tell you what. If you're a Democrat, you can get away with, murdering Mary Jo Kopechne in a river somewhere because you just don't. You're a Democrat. You don't care. Yeah. You can get away with anything. You can get away with harassing 12 women in New York State, and probably go on to pick up a CNN gig at some point. I'm waiting for that, right?
When does he? We should put an over/under on when he comes back on the scene because he's not gone yet.
Is he running again? He might be running again. Who knows?
He
could run again. He could say, "I'm going to let the voters decide." And I tell you what. Yeah. When people think about, folks in New York City, how could you be so stupid? I got a couple videos.
They're that dumb.
You're not
going to.
Let me actually, this would be a good time to play these videos because
they're that dumb, Glenn. They are absolutely that dumb.
It could be
to vote him back in, right?
You're going to love this.
They're absolutely that dumb. Although I think, it'll be Kathy Hochul or this Attorney General, one of the two. And where's the Republican Party is just unless you're going to throw. Some really big stuff, right? You need to come out swinging. I love Zeldin. Giuliani's son seems like a nice enough guy. You have to come out. You got to get on places like The View. I hate to say that, but you got to come out swinging. That's what Trump did. Yeah, but that's what Trump did. He didn't back down from these people. You can't back down from them. You got to go right at them. And you got to go and just be explosive. If you want to win, that's the only shot you have is to really throw yourself in the ring. I don't see either of those two doing it.
No, I don't see it either.
I'd come out swinging. I'd be on every network. I'd debate every darn one of them. That's what you have to do.
Okay, so I'm not going to play the audio because you can't hear the audio anyways, but I'm going to play the video here as soon as it pops up. So now. Mind you, I'll have to play the other video on my. I'll play the other video on my phone.
Taliban official is asked to find Afghanistan.
No, but seriously, but think about this.
He's got no idea.
Okay, no, he's got no idea. But think about this for a second. Let me get rid of this. This is in French, anyways. Okay, so they give the Taliban. This is a Taliban leader, right? They give him a globe to try to find Afghanistan. He has no idea. Now, to this guy's defense, and you're going to find out why I'm defending him in a second. This guy, I'm sure, has had no formal education whatsoever, right?
No.
I'm sure he grew up and lives in a small village for the last 20 years, likely in a cave somewhere, right? Or he lived in one of those stucco kind of homes, right? It's not as if there were colleges there and higher education, right? I'm sure they didn't really get into a lot of global geography, right? But what's the excuse when you get to the States? Like, what's the excuse for you compare that. Okay, I grew up in a small village in Afghanistan to this. Right?
Easy to see, by the way, how you can, manipulate these people, right? I mean, no education, the government's here for you, the Taliban's here for you, ISIS is here for you. It's going to get really ugly the way we left left it over there.
No question.
Really ugly. Watch and see this thing sort of more. I mean, you're talking about all it takes is another one generation of kids that are exposed to this type of lunaticness, right? I mean, and they breed like carp,
right.
So it's just only going to get worse.
So the Afghanistan guy who probably has no formal education, has lived in a small village somewhere in Afghanistan. I'm sure didn't attend college.
Doesn't know where he lives.
Couldn't figure out on a globe where Afghanistan was. Okay.
Tell me she doesn't know where the United States of America is.
Oh, Mike, you have no idea.
No way.
Oh God, yeah.
Way.
It's just horrible. This is terrible. Ready? Here we go.
Any country on this map.
Honestly, my geography is so horrible. I can't even.
Any country.
Anything. Like
anyone.
Is it South Africa?
Nope.
Yeah, the country of Asia.
Nope. That's a continent, and that's Russia.
Oh, damn. I'm silly.
How about where you live?
Right. So these are government-funded school kids right here is what this is.
Africa.
That's a continent.
Country.
These are registered Democrats.
I'm sure. This looks like New York City, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I know South Africa's over here.
So when you ask
somewhere.
yourself how in the world
yeah.
people vote for Andrew Cuomo or Hochul, this is it right here.
On this map.
Right. These are the people voting for exactly.
Africa?
That's a continent.
Oh, God.
Can you name any countries in Africa?
God, no.
Not one?
Like that.
Not
Can you
Libya,
name any
Egypt,
country
South
on this
Africa,
map?
nothing?
Yes.
Ethiopia, nothing?
Africa.
That's a continent.
Oh, country.
United States of America.
Or Iceland or something?
That's Alaska.
Iceland. Jeez, oh Pete.
Any country.
Any
On
country.
the entire map.
But
This
he's
is so
nice.
horrible.
Where's
But she's
America?
nice. That's why I vote for her.
I
But
would
she's
say this
nice.
big one, but I'm probably wrong.
She's definitely wrong.
Okay.
Can you name any country?
Didn't know
on
the
this
United
map?
States.
Oh my gosh. Shouldn't I be taught this in school?
You'd think, huh?
Yeah.
Right? These are government-funded schools these kids have went to, I'm sure.
South America.
Instead, we're going to teach you about white privilege.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which it seems like you have a bunch of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Seems like
The
your
end one's the
privilege
best.
is-
That's why I'm trying to get to the
Here. Somewhere here.
Can you name any country in Europe?
Is this one Europe?
Oh, my
This one?
God.
No.
Any country in Europe. How do you feed
Name a
yourself?
single country in Africa.
Was this Africa?
No, again, that's South America.
No idea.
Can you name a country in South America?
Okay, this is South America.
Yes, can you name a country in it?
Just one.
No, I can't.
And we wonder why people don't know about socialism in Venezuela. They don't even know where Venezuela is.
Well, not
This kid's the best. Watch this kid.
Bolivia. Brazil.
All right.
He was homeschooled.
Oh, yeah.
Or he went to private school. One of the two, right? One of the two. But certainly didn't go to a public school. But think about that, right? So they're making fun online of this Afghan guy. No, he's a leader of Afghanistan now. So he's but he has no idea where Afghanistan is on a globe, right, on a map. But again, this guy's grown up in a small, no internet, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah.
He'd be lucky if he had running water and electricity in Afghanistan, right? Mm-hmm. Now, versus people in New York going to, government-funded schools. Now might be a good time to talk about, everything the government touches turning to shit, as President Trump said, right? Because guess what? I don't care what. You pick one thing. One thing, you put the government in charge, and they will screw it up, right? Think about it. These kids can't even identify the United States of America, and some of these were adults. These weren't even kids. These were adults. I have no idea where I live. I don't know. But you vote, right? I swear to God, I think there should be a test. There should be a test. How about just a geography test? You walk into the voting booth. You see a map like that. You have to correctly put the pen on the United States of America. Just the country. Just the country, yeah. I'm not even asking to break down at the state level, right? Just go to the country
We're not
level.
asking you to break down South America,
No.
Argentina,
No. I'm not even asking
Bolivia, anything like that. No, nothing like that. We're just saying, where do you live?
Where do you
live?
Not even your state. Just your country.
And maybe your neighbor to the north,
my
right?
God.
Like, look at especially for those of you in New York State, that thing up to the north called Canada.
Your border.
You should know a little about that. Yeah,
I don't know, but here's the thing.
And here's the thing. Like, think about the last 2 years and how frustrated we get about the BS when it comes to COVID and the lies. And you think, how in the world do these people, how do they fall for this garbage?
This is how.
They don't even know where they live.
Nope.
They don't even know where they live.
Dumber than rocks, these people are.
They
Dumber
don't
than
even
rocks.
know where they
It's
live.
crazy.
They can't even point out the United States of America. Of course they actually think 700,000 people died of COVID.
Right.
By the way, Colin Powell, did you see that? A bunch of garbage
Cancer.
this week?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. He had like six different forms of blood cancer throughout his body with multiple things. The headline everywhere says he dies of COVID. No, he didn't die of COVID. He died of cancer.
But he also got the vaccination. Excuse me. I don't know. I should take my allergy pill this morning. The allergies will kill me.
Yeah,
but
his
he
immune
was
system
vaxxed.
was shot.
But he was vaxxed. He was vaxxed. I thought the vaccination works, right? Oh, another rare breakthrough. Rare breakthrough case, right? 30% of the people in Buffalo hospitals are vaccinated, but those are breakthroughs. Look, a breakthrough is like out of 800, like one or two, right? One or two, that's a breakthrough, right?
Right.
Out of 800 people in Western New York or wherever the number is, like 30% of them have been vaccinated. That's a pretty high number for something that was supposed to be 96% effective or 94% effective.
The fact of the matter, never, ever, ever, ever. If this was 2 years ago, Colin Powell would have his headline would have said died of cancer.
Yeah.
Multiple. First of all, what happens is you have cancer, and you typically don't finally die of cancer. You die of pneumonia or the flu or something. It just puts you over the edge. But that's not what you died of. He died of cancer. He had 6 or 7 different forms of blood cancer. Right. I mean, for the media to come out and say he died of COVID is beyond disgusting to me.
Well, they don't come out. They don't come out and say, okay, he died of pneumonia after somebody had lung cancer.
No.
Right?
No, right.
You died of the lung cancer is what killed
That's
you,
right.
The pneumonia was just a side effect.
Right.
And I'm sure the COVID was the same. The COVID was, he probably got it in the hospital when he was, in his final stages. I don't know what the circumstances were with Colin.
It's the form of the flu. That's what we die. What happens is when you have you have lung cancer, you have there's something that puts you over the edge at the end. Typically multiple things. It's not one or two. Oh, he had
organ
pneumonia,
failure,
he had influenza, he had multiple things.
Yeah.
But to put that on the headline is so absolutely disgusting. Like, well, a Republican, we got him.
Right.
We got him. That COVID got him.
But
it's
to your
still
point,
here.
though, to dumb down in order to change the United States of America from the glorious, exceptional country it is to the socialist hellhole that the Democrats think will be utopia, right? First thing you have to do is make sure that the children and the next generations coming up through the ranks are dumber than dirt. And based on that video, I would say that they've been successful with that because now you can tell them anything and they'll believe it, right?
And controlled. Let me just say this. I went to church on Sunday. I went to religion with my daughter, Allie, right? And we were there. She goes, I need a mask because we're not wearing a mask to church. If that's what they want, then we're going to leave and we're going to go out to breakfast. We're not doing that, right? She goes, Dad, I got to be honest. She goes, I'm a little nervous that at some point they're going to arrest you. I said, what did you say?
Yeah.
She goes, well, you never go anywhere with a mask, and I'm just afraid they're going to arrest you. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, my poor daughter, like, this is what we created here.
Yep.
Like, this is, they're going to arrest me.
Comply or they'll take you away in cuffs, Mike.
Right.
That's right.
Dad's going. Dad's leaving.
Because they're talking
Dad's
about
not getting
that.
arrested.
But they're talking about that, right? Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States of America, is putting out a memo to the FBI saying start investigating parents who are concerned and are expressing their views when it comes to the garbage. So they're teaching our kids garbage, right? They're teaching them that there are 16 pronouns and 84 genders, right? They're not teaching them where the United States is on a map.
Let me add to that. And by the way, it's okay to burn down federal buildings.
Right, that's okay.
It's okay to burn down private buildings.
Right.
As long as you do it in the name of Antifa or Black Lives Matter. Right. That's okay. You're proud. You're standing up for what you believe. But if your mom or dad show up at a PTA meeting or at a school board meeting because they don't want a face diaper on you, they should probably go to jail.
So they've been teaching this garbage curriculum instead of teaching things like geography and teaching kids where the United States is on a map. So they're teaching these kids garbage, right? And then they got caught. They got caught, right? COVID exposed a lot, right? Parents got the opportunity to sit in their living room. Remember, teachers were sending out memos, right? Parents don't get on here. Don't be paying attention. Kids go do your in a private space where your parents don't see what's going on, right? I got to tell you, now my kids go to private school already, but I watched my kids have been going to school. There was no downside. There was no home. There was part, virtual for a while there for one of my kids. But my youngest was in school pretty much the whole time. Went to a Catholic school, right? But we went on a spring break to Utah back in March, and we came back, and the requirement is you quarantine for 10 days. Okay, fine. So I got to watch him on this Zoom meeting in his classroom for 10 days. At the end of the first day, I'm like, he's out. Find a new school.
Yeah.
Done. Not what they were teaching wasn't bad. The stuff that they were teaching was fine. It wasn't about the curriculum. It was about the out of controlness of the class. I mean, the kids were throwing papers around. Kids were yelling across the room. I mean, it was so disruptive in the classroom. I'm thinking to myself,
no control.
No control. How does any kid learn in this environment? This is not a good learning environment. And then what would happen is they were mounding on homework every night because they weren't getting it done in school. Well, no wonder you weren't getting it done in school.
Right, take control.
Take control.
Well, here you can't yell at kids anymore.
No, but they were doing stupid stuff. Like they were doing like uniform violations. I don't know. How about the violation for throwing the banana across the room? I don't know. Maybe that's a violation.
Right.
Maybe that's a suspension.
Right.
I don't. Anyway, but parents
got
a glimpse into the classroom, and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
They didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
They didn't like at all what they saw. So they started showing up at these school board meetings. And the thing is, these people just flat out lie to you. No. You sent me a video. No, we're not teaching this stuff. No. We're not teaching this stuff at all.
Here it is.
But I just saw this. Like
it's in their book bag. If there's a positive to this whole thing, it's that hopefully we take back control of many of these school boards because it does start there. It starts there, and they are relentless, man. I'm telling you, we're up against this in my district. One daughter's going to private school. The others in public will be going to private school. But still, I'm going to fight for that public school, and it's amazing to me. The district is 4-1 Republican to Democrat,
right.
But the school board was littered and infested.
Because they had nothing better to do.
Left-wing extremists. And they don't care, by the way. They'll say, we're going to listen to everybody. Oh, you didn't pick my answer? Nope, we're just going to keep going and going and going until I grind you to the ground.
That's right.
And then the conservatives go, okay, we'll compromise with you.
That's because after a full day of working and a full week of working, a lot of parents don't want to, look, it's tough, right? You work all day, you get home, you want to make your kids dinner, and then you got to go to a school board meeting?
Yeah.
Like, seriously? But the liberals, see, they're home all day. Right, they have nothing to do. Right, they got their husband maybe or spouse. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the wife is working at some college, right? Or maybe they're a professor. Maybe they got a government job. Great, full benefits, right? Wife doesn't need to work. Husband doesn't need to work. So they got all kinds of time to get involved with school boards and stuff like that. But you and me, Mike, at the end of the week, we're pretty tired, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Here's another positive. Yeah,
I'm assuming
you're
talking.
I can hear you.
There you go. Okay, good. Keep going.
I don't know. We got to figure this out. I'll tell you this: the one thing that could end up really exploding this thing as we move into the holiday season. 40% of TSA workers are not vaccinated right now. Mm-hmm. So I want you to think about that as people are going to start to fly during the holiday season. Mm-hmm. Many of you liberal professors who have finally come out of your basement and said, "Oh boy, I can now go see my family after 2 years." Right? Yeah, not this year.
Maybe not.
Not this year. 40% of you, 40% of TSA workers, I'm hoping they stand their ground. That's exactly what needs to happen, right? There was an ESPN reporter the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I have her
how terrible
name.
is that?
Allison Williams, right? So Allison, by the way, she reports 90% of the time on a football field away from everybody. Like, she's a live reporter, like, okay, she's away from everybody. They're forcing her to get the vaccination. She said, good for her. I'm not doing it. I quit.
Yep.
Right? And she walked away. And I give so many people credit for that because there's so many conservatives that just go, all right, you won. I'm going to do the shot, right? And before you know it, the problem is if 40% of us, 30% of us stood up and said no way, it shuts down the economy, then it's over.
Look what happened with Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines, now, the pilots claim and the union claims, no, we didn't do a stick out or anything like that. But what they did do is
it was the weather.
It was
couldn't find a storm anywhere.
It
was one storm.
That was totally
there was one storm in the Midwest.
The same weather that didn't affect any other airline but Southwest. I think what the pilots did, from what I'm hearing and what I understand, is that they just declined to take the overtime, right? Because, Southwest has been booking a lot. People are going back to traveling. And these pilots said, you know what? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do the overtime. Just like the truckers. Like, yeah, you're going to take half my money? I don't think so, right? No, and you look at how many thousands of flights and disruption happened to Southwest. Now, the Southwest CEO, I heard in an interview come out later and say, no, we're not going to enforce a mandate. And then I hear now they've backtracked again and said, yes, we're going to enforce a mandate by end of November. Now,
I just hope they all stick. Stick, please. Fight with this. Fight.
Go to Delta.
Please.
Here's going to be the big winner. Delta Airlines basically came out and said, no, We're not doing that. Yeah, the government, you're going to fine us? Go ahead. You're the one giving us money anyways, you idiots. We're just going to pay your fines with the money you gave us anyways, but we're not complying. If there's a huge opportunity, this is a kind of economic shakeup, folks, that changes the course of things. 2000 was the same, by the way. 2000, that tech wreck was an economic shakeup that really changed. That shakeup launched companies like Amazon, right? Launched companies like Netflix, created new businesses, destroyed others. Took 20 years for a Cisco to come back to where it was, right? Oracle, never coming back,
and reset the base. I mean, you remember there were so many companies that didn't have earnings. It was a crappy idea, but yet they were just throwing money at it, and all of a sudden, at that point, it was like, you know what? We want to go back to some of the fundamentals, which is good earnings, solid books, cash flow, dividends, and some new leaders emerged out of that.
That's right.
I just hope the conservatives can find their backbone enough to stick with this. The TSA is a perfect place to do that.
Sure.
Right? Enough is enough. It's amazing to me, like in New York State, why do we still have a mandate to go to a Sabres game? 2/3 of the state have already gotten the vaccination, two shots of the vaccination.
Yeah.
Out of the 1/3 that's left, many of them are like me who already had COVID, right? Who could possibly be left to die from this? Who could possibly be left?
And I think you're seeing that now. You had, and this is what drives me nuts about the Democrats. We follow the science. No, you don't. Look at the South. Look at the South. They're having football games with packed stadiums with 70, 80, 90,000 people. And you know what? No one's getting it. And there's a great interview I had that we can play as well, where they're going, well, they're not getting it. They're not getting it because the Delta variant's already either swept through these college campuses, and most of these kids have already had it, or a lot of these kids have opted to get vaccinated, right? Actually, let me play the clip, because it's a good clip to play. I won't be able to stream
As you're loading that, by the way, New York, I just want to break this because I'm sure CNN's going to tell you guys this later. New York now has more than double Florida rate of new COVID cases per 100,000.
Right.
New York.
Well, you knew that was coming, right?
CNN's going to break that story
right through. You knew it was coming, right?
Florida currently has one of the lowest per capita COVID cases in the U.S. I just want to let you know because CNN's going to come talk about it later today, I'm sure.
Well, we said that, and we said that back in July, and DeSantis said it back in July. We have the same seasonality as the previous year, where it's going to move north as people go inside, but as it gets colder. That's exactly what's happened.
Absolutely mutated itself. Exactly, by the way.
The difference, though.
And everybody listened to this show 2 years ago with Dr. Erickson on talking about how this thing's going to mutate it. There is no better case sample than our office. We have tied directly to us as 20-something financial planners, right? Thousands of clients. I can tell you that not this March, but the March before, 2 weeks to flatten the curve March, we had a few clients that were in the hospital. Now, I'm absolutely 100% convinced that if they were given the right treatment like ivermectin, they would have walked out and been fine, right? Instead, they were put on ventilators. They made it worse. But you could see that March, there was a few cases, and I say a few, there was about 4 or 5 people out of all the thousands of clients that were on ventilators that were sick. Literally within 3 months, we couldn't find a client that was on a ventilator. Now, we found a lot of clients that had it, and now it's the same thing. It's like a shotgun. If you hit me with a shotgun from 2 foot away, I'm gonna die, right? But if you hit me farther and farther away and that starts to spread out, which is what that virus does and starts to mutate, it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker.
Yeah, well, to their defense in the beginning, nobody knew, any sort of treatments. Nobody knew ivermectin.
Nobody knew.
But you have to ask yourself, what's the excuse today? We have people that are fighting in courts in New York. Now, many of you, again, are listening to this podcast outside of the state of New York. I know we have a lot of people in Florida that listen, a lot of people in the South that listen in general. And I know it's hard to fathom, but just so you know, in New York, they're still not – in New York, they're filing court cases. They're suing – we had a friend, a friend group that were involved with Russ, right?
No, Russ gave us his permission to talk about it. Russ Thompson,
unbelievable,
who's been fighting nonstop to raise money. So when people are literally, when the few that are really sick from COVID, and this happened literally last week, raised about $8,000, which is crazy to me because ivermectin's like $50.
Not even. You can get these. You can get these Zavardo cards for like $12.
Yeah, this lady was a severe case of COVID, sick, in the hospital, sued. Next day, ivermectin. 2 days later, almost 100% back.
Having had to raise money, had to go to court, had to file an injunction to allow the ivermectin to be given. Otherwise, she stays on a ventilator, and maybe she gets better, maybe she doesn't. So a year and a half ago, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve march, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's how we're going to label it.
Nobody knew, right?
Yeah.
And I get that.
Right.
It was new as a novel coronavirus. Is it a new virus? We don't know. Of course, Fauci knew a little bit because he created the thing, but nobody else knew, right? So we didn't know about any of this stuff. But by May, 2 months in, you had all kinds of frontline doctors. You just mentioned Dr. Erickson was on our show. They were on the steps of the White House or the Congress. One of those people that were part of that doctor group that was on the steps of the White House is actually the medical director for the state of Florida now. They're the attorney, whatever they call it. I'm not sure what the term is. The state medical director, whatever. They're the top person in the state for whatever. But in Florida and places in the South, they have monoclonal antibody treatment centers. They have different treatment centers. I don't see these in New York. And I know somebody on Twitter, I think it might have been a Griffin's daughter or something, totally irrelevant, but said, wow, they're treating people here. Where? Again, I know a few people that have gone in a hospital. If you go
They're not even treating them in the hospital, let alone
right, exactly. If you go into the hospital, you're screwed because it's too late because you can't. They won't. You've got to sneak the medicine in but you can't see your loved one, right? Because they won't let you see them, right? It's outrageous. Yeah. You got to take this stuff early. Let me go back and play this clip because this is NBC. They can't figure it out. They're like, wow, how is this possible? Look at this, and this is the whole style. This is the Today Show.
This morning, college football fans are getting ready once again to pack stadiums nationwide. 4 weeks, crowds in the tens of thousands, mostly unmasked, have sat side by side, now cheering on their teams at
mostly
the halfway
unmasked.
Point of the season.
Sitting side by side.
Before.
People are more pumped up.
Yes, sir.
All while doctors warned of game-coming potential super spread events.
What happened?
A frightening prospect with hospitals at the time already on the brink.
As soon as I saw it, I thought COVID's about to have a feast. What did you think?
I thought the same thing. I think it's really unfortunate.
But it never happened. COVID cases, hospitalizations, and
what a
deaths
shocker!
Now all
Can you hold that for 1 second, Glenn?
Now all down nationwide.
Yeah, now all down. First of all, any of you Democrats that are brainless, that didn't get this experiment from day one. Day one was Texas. They were the first ones to open their baseball stadium. And we were told within 2 weeks, watch and see what happens there. And then 2 weeks later, CNN just forgot that there was a baseball game there. Why? Because their bullshit was exposed and there was no super spreader and the rates went down. In Texas, they went down. In the community of the New York or the Texas Rangers, in that community, the rates went substantially down 2 weeks later. That says that people, guess what? Getting out and about, seeing people and friends could actually be good for your health. But it wasn't a super spreader. From that day on, every stadium should have been open. Every rock concert should have been open.
But the thing is, they're still talking about super spreaders. That's the amazing part, Mike.
All right.
That was the spring. Right?
Yeah.
What? Remember if Dr. Fauci did an interview with Fauci? He goes, well, how do you explain, Dr. Fauci? You thought it would be a massive outbreak 2 weeks later. How do you explain the fact that they dropped their mask mandate and they all packed into the Astros stadium and nobody got sick? Well,
was it the Astros
I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Rangers. It doesn't matter. Whatever it was.
No.
Well, it could be. Remember this? It could be because they were outside. I'm not quite sure. We don't really. So they're still. So in their little tiny pea brains, and Dr. Fauci's little tiny pea brain, right? This part here is a big part of the brain. That's the totalitarian part. But the actual logic part, that's a little tiny little peanut right there, right?
Right.
Little tiny. He can't figure it out. He's still trying to figure it out. We don't know. We would expect super spreaders still. It's not happening.
How
many times are you going to expect a super spreader? And that's like saying, let's see, if I pour cold water on myself, I'm not going to be cold. But I dump it on myself, I get cold, right? And then I do it again and again and again. Look, we've done this. People have been packing stadiums since the spring, and there's been no. Let me play the rest of the interview. This is just priceless, right?
We packed one stadium here for Billy Joel in Buffalo.
Right.
Nothing happened. But the liberals were outraged that nobody was listening to them with the face diapers, and so immediately they shut all that fun down.
It's all about punishment.
Remind you, by the way, of communist China, or when you talk about the Taliban and not being able to play music. I mean, if this doesn't start to ring a bell to people in their little brains that there is no evidence of super spreaders, no evidence of anything, but it's all about control. 100% about control.
The difference is in places like New York with Democrats is it's about punishment, right? It's about punishment. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
They put policies in place like no going to stadiums without vaccination or whatever.
Yeah.
The policies don't drive the outcomes they expect, right?
Right.
And,
it doesn't matter.
And then the best part is it's your fault. They blame the people, right, for not following closely enough. This has been the same process and pattern going on over and over. Well, if everyone would just get vaccinated, if everyone would just wear their mask. See, it's your fault that there's stupid, ridiculous, arbitrary policies like 3 foot, 6 foot, 9 foot, 12, right? It's their fault that these things aren't working, but they're blaming it on you. Now, because it's your fault, you need to be punished. And that's what they're doing. They're punishing you because they were wrong.
You're not allowed to go
now
to
in
Sabres
Florida,
game. You're not allowed to go to
that's
Bills
right.
game.
You're punished because they were wrong, but you're the one punished. Now in Florida, when Governor DeSantis was wrong, he didn't punish and blame the people. He came out and said, you know what? I was wrong. I shouldn't have shut down businesses. I made a mistake. The difference is they're not punishing their citizens. Democrats do this all the time. We're going to have to cut police. We're going to have to cut teachers.
The parks are closed.
We're going to have
parks are closed.
Remember when the government shut down over Obama? What did he do? He shut down the World War II memorial, right?
That's right.
He didn't shut down the welfare center. He didn't shut down Planned Parenthood. No. Mm-hmm. He shut down what he knew would be most important to the people, and that was our monument to World War II.
Don't need to be vaccinated to get welfare right now, right? Don't need a drug test to pick up some welfare, right? You want to walk across the border, you don't need to be vaccinated.
That's right.
But if you want to go have fun and go watch the Sabres and the Bills, you better go get that shot.
In a Democrat-run state, you are punished for not complying when they put stuff in place. Let me play the rest of this interview because it's good. This is just priceless.
Yeah. I think it's really unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
But it never happened.
Never happened.
COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths now all down nationwide.
Do those scenes of those packed crowds give you less anxiety than they did back in September?
Talking to a doctor here.
It does. It definitely gives me less anxiety at that time as I see some increased number of vaccinated people.
Vaccinated,
and the decrease in the dwindling numbers.
Go back to the playbook.
Dwindling numbers.
Cases are now in steep decline in every college football state across the South, including Florida, where hospitalizations fell 64% last month.
Can we cut that clip, Kelsey? Can we cut that clip, or Lily? That part right there summarizes everything.
Let me back it up.
Everything about how nuts these people are. We need to tweet every liberal Democrat in the county executive, the governor.
They don't care because it's not about health.
No.
It's about punishment, right?
Yep.
You folks in the community, and it's not even about an outbreak.
You're not listening.
It's not even about you are not complying. See, there could be zero COVID in Erie County. But not everyone's complying with the mandates, right? There are people that are not listening to the rules, right? And so as a result, it doesn't matter, again, with the outcomes. Outcomes don't matter to Democrats, right? They could set your house on fire and burn it to the ground and say, well, you know what? Yeah, but the intent was for us to just burn the shrubbery around the front of the house. That was the intent. So no harm, no foul? No harm, no foul. You burnt my house down, you morons. Well, but our intent was to just singe the bushes around the front of the house. It was just right?
And it's all for the betterment of everybody. So, and you're rich.
And you're rich.
Every college football state across the South, including Florida, where hospitalizations fell 64% last month, even as some 90,000 fans packed the Gator Stadium.
You see it on TV and it looks really scary because we're not used to seeing that anymore.
That
but
is
in reality, I think the exposure isn't as great as we think it is.
Doctors crediting games in open-air venues, a vaccination bump during the surge, and natural immunity after Delta swept through younger populations.
This journalist
Dr.
is gone.
Cindy Prinz is an epidemiologist at the University
Did his car blow up?
Well, he'll have a sex scandal next week, just so you know. Just getting out ahead of this. This reporter here, he probably harassed women that he doesn't even know. I'm just going to put it out there now.
We better call. We better call and find out where this guy lives, because I will pay for his defense.
Just let him know. Give him a heads up.
Miraculously, his car just came into his community and smashed through the gate at 175 miles an hour. Blew up.
He may want to check his brakes before he drives to work. I'm just going to say that right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Wow.
This guy is done. Anyway, all right. I won't play the rest of that.
Wow, can we cut that up? We have to cut that up. That just summarizes everything.
Yeah.
We could do 15 radio shows just replaying that. Yeah.
That and the girl can't find the U.S. on a map. That's my favorite one. Just amazing.
Unreal.
Yep.
Unreal. Well, anyways, we've been getting a lot of calls with the market. I know we're coming up to the end of the show here, but what do you do, right? That's what I hear. Like, oh my God, what do you do? Well, I would tell you this. I had a long conversation with one of our CFAs, John Thur. And John has always said this, Paul's always said this, you always trade up. You're always looking for the companies that are going to benefit from the current themes out there. As much as, joking, if I say if everybody was over my house over the last 2 years, you would have seen one common theme every single night, and that is me yelling at a TV and my wife saying, they don't hear you. Do you know that? And I'm like, well, they're going to hear me. And she'll say, you're not changing stuff. And I'll say, well, I actually think I am. We're fighting a lot of lawsuits and won some stuff, but to some point, she's right in that, there's a lot of stuff that is out of our control. But what you can control when you're looking at your investments is the companies you're buying, the investments you're buying, how you're responding to things, right? I know that a lot of our portfolios, we have a little bit of extra cash right now. We're waiting for some kind of a little pullback and trying to take advantage of things. But you look for the companies that have good earnings, good books, maybe dividends, some cash. I keep hearing the country's broke, which it is, right? Another $3.5 trillion. We're going to be over $30 trillion in debt, right? We're 200% of GDP in our debt. China, by the way, 400%. So when I hear China's much better off than us, the whole world is just debt ridden, right? But that doesn't mean that companies are broke. I continue to say, at what point does the stock market become the security? At what part do I say, I don't know if I trust that bank account over there, or I do trust the banks. By the way, a lot of banks are
very
solid,
well capitalized.
Right?
Yeah.
But do I buy? Let me ask you this: do you buy New York State bonds or do you invest in Apple? Which one's safer?
Right.
Right. And I don't know that. I'm just saying, I do know that. I've got I think there's a lot of stocks out there that are not broke, that have good cash flow, that have good earnings. And, I would say this, too. I keep hearing we're going to do our debt. Yeah, that's one thing. But I think you're going to see cracks in the armor first, and I think it's going to be on a state level. I think you're going to see states like New York.
Yeah, California.
Because, we can still print money, right? I mean, eventually it's going to be worthless if we continue to do this and kick it down the road for another 40 years. We'll be burning our but in the short term, the federal government can print money. The states, by the way, that's where you're going to see the breaking points. You're going to see states like New York go, boy, we didn't realize we could spend an extra $30 billion a year without any problems, and now here it is.
Yep.
And like Detroit. Remember, Detroit went bankrupt a few years ago.
Yeah. Chicago's on the brink.
And by the way, it was the best thing that happened in Detroit. The real estate market for the first time in 40 years went up.
Yeah.
And that's because they were forced to take care of some of the crap that was on those
Well,
books.
look at the Buffalo. You mentioned this a long time ago, right? It wasn't until the control board came in that really changed things. People give Byron Brown a lot of credit, but it wasn't Byron Brown. No. He was just the puppet in a nice fancy suit. Yeah. It was the control board, the hard control board that came in and said, no, we're not paying for this. No, you're not. You're not renewing this contract. No, you're not giving these raises. And that's sometimes what it takes, no doubt about it.
And the city of Buffalo, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this, but the city of Buffalo, all the folks that live in the suburbs of the city of Buffalo are actually subsidizing the lower taxes. So people say, how in the world does an $800,000 house in the city of Buffalo only cost $5,000 in taxes, when if I own that same home in Alden or Elma, it would be triple that? It's because part of your tax bill in Alden and Elma goes to subsidize the city, and we don't realize that. But it's a shame. Actually, was it a Walton? Walton, I think, when he ran for county executive, that was his platform, but he just didn't say it enough.
Right.
I think there are enough people in the suburbs, if they found out, wait a minute, do you know that your money's going to pay for North Bud? That's why it's cheaper there?
Right.
No, I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah, so liberals can move downtown and be self-righteous about it, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they can redistribute their money, or mine, I meant.
Yeah. It was never theirs. They always find the loopholes, and they're on government pensions. They don't need to save. That's the amazing thing. When you think about this, folks, and how the importance of pensions, right? You go to work for a university, let's say, and you have a pension, let's just say it's 50% of your income. So let's say your income's $100,000. You're going to get $50,000 now for the rest of your life, plus health care. That $50,000, $60,000 benefit, that's like you've got to have like $1.3 million in an investment account to fund that. You know how long it takes to save $1.3 million and to get to that level, right? So they don't have to save. They don't have to earn as much. They don't have to save at all, right? They can spend every nickel that they have because they've got this huge fat government pension coming. It's a benefit to them, and I don't fault them for the benefit. But, when it comes to things like tax rates and stuff like that, it doesn't impact them so much. They don't have to earn more in order to save more,
Think about this. These professors and these teachers, they get tax-free. They get state tax-free. So they want you and I to pay more state taxes, but their pension's state tax free.
That's right.
State tax free.
Which, by the way, is going up. You mentioned the state before, Mike. They increased the budget by roughly $30 billion. They're about $187 billion budget's now $220 billion. That $30 billion of extra money came from the federal government. It's not going to come again. And so smart states like Florida said, nah, we don't really need your money. You keep it. We're good. We don't have to worry about that. Ford did that when the bailout came. Yeah, we don't need you. We're good, right? Look at all what Ford's doing now is wiping the floor with GM, right? Same thing is going to happen in New York, though. When the following year comes and they didn't squirrel that money away. It didn't go to a savings account. They spent every nickel of it on welfare, benefits, and giveaways. So
they spent 50. They spent 50.
So in order to pay for that now,
they got $30 billion, Glenn, from the government and spent 50. They were already 20 in the hole.
Crazy.
After getting that.
Right.
Crazy.
So where's that money coming from next year?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
Right? It's coming from you. Right? It's coming from taxpayers.
It might not be taxes. It just might be this little tariff or this little regulation or this. It might not be state income taxes, but guess what? We might have to reassess the value of your house because now it's up by 20%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Already done
you should
that.
be grateful that it's up by 20%.
Right.
That's where it's coming.
Hey, just to mention real quick, if you're interested in the financial part of this and you are concerned about the inflation, the lower GDP, what's going on in the market, we do have a economic update and stock market commentary session coming up October 27th. That's a week from tomorrow at 6:15. Go to our website if you want to sign up. It's thefinancialguys.com. It'll be Mike and I interviewing our entire investment committee. Paul Meeks, who's on CNBC about every week, one of our CFAs. John Thur, one of our other CFAs. Peter Nielsen, our newest CFA, will be on there along with several other folks as well. And so if you want to find out more about, it's kind of a behind the scenes on what do we talk about. We manage over $1 billion in assets under management between the financial guys and the retail side and the RIA side, investment advisory side. Independent Solutions alone has $750 million in assets under management, and the guys and girls that manage those portfolios will be interviewing next Wednesday at 6:15, October 27th. So again, go to our website, thefinancialguys.com. There you can sign up for that free session. There's no there's no cost to it. You can just dial in. It's a dial-in deal. You can dial in, listen to the investment committee, find out what we're thinking, and kind of how we're positioning portfolios going forward, and what the concerns and the positives on the market as we see them. And also, if you want to find out all the different departments that we have, from retirement planning to wealth management, income planning, Social Security analysis, Medicare. Our Medicare folks right now are booked several weeks out. Before you can even get an appointment with them. So we have offices in Rochester, Batavia, Buffalo, down in South Florida, and Jupiter. And then we have affiliated offices to our broker-dealer all over the country. So if you need us, folks, use this as a resource. Go to our website, thefinancialguys.com. You can email us. You can email us through that website as well, or just make a comment. We appreciate that, and certainly we'll get back to you with any questions that you have to do the best we can. And finally, you can find all of our social media links on that website. Obviously, this podcast, but also our Twitter feed, YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Rumble, whatever else we're doing. Some things I'm probably not even aware of. So anyway, The Financial Guys. We're everywhere. TheFinancialGuys.com.
Financial guys are a super spreader of conservative information.
That's right. Mike, I never got to your video you sent me. You want me to play that now on the school CRT
let's save
stuff?
it for Saturday. We'll save it for Saturday. Find us on iHeartRadio on Saturday.
Yeah, don't forget, every Saturday from 1 to 3, we do a live radio show, and we've done that now since 1999, so 20-some-odd years on the radio. And that airs live in the Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse market, but, of course, all over the country on iHeartRadio. So go to iHeartRadio, look up The Financial Guys. You'll find us. You can listen to our podcast, listen to the radio show there, and we appreciate your support. If you like the show today, if you like what you heard, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up, share this with your friends, and don't forget to hit that bell and subscribe. You'll get notified with all the different podcasts and different videos that we put out there on YouTube. So we appreciate your support. So, Mike, any last comments before we go?
Well, see you Saturday, folks.
All right, see you Saturday. On behalf of Mike Lomas, I'm Glenn Wiggle. We're the Financial Guys. We'll see you Saturday on the Financial Guys Radio Network. Thanks for watching.